Hello and welcome to Thrive Within. I am your host, Marc Bucksath, a life coach, educator, and someone who's passionate about helping you live more fully, honestly, and aligned with who you really are. This podcast is your space for real talk and focused coaching on things like confidence, purpose, boundaries, self-doubt, and personal growth. So whether you're walking, taking a break, or just giving your brain a moment to breathe, I am so glad you're here. Let's get into it. Today's topic of conversation is why we fear failure so much. Well, let's think about that for a minute. Failure, just the word alone, can stir something uncomfortable inside us. For many of us, failure doesn't just represent a moment, it represents a story. A story about our worth, our capability, or even our future. It's not just I failed at something, it becomes I am a failure. But here's the truth that most of us forget. Failure is not a verdict. It's feedback. It's a turning point. And when you learn to reframe it, failure can become one of your greatest teachers. And don't get me wrong, I'm not saying it's easy. I'm just saying it's possible and powerful. So let's talk about how failure shapes the stories we tell ourselves. Let's think about it for a second. Most of the stories we carry about failure aren't actually the moment itself. They're from what we've told ourselves afterwards. A failed project turns into, I can't trust myself to follow through. Or a broken relationship turns into, I must not be lovable. Or a career setback turns into, I'll never make it. We tie meaning to failure so tightly that it starts to shape our identity. And over time, if we're not careful, that story can keep us small. But failure doesn't have to define us. It can refine us. It can reveal strength we didn't even know we had. So, let me tell you a story. This happened years ago. I was working on a project and I believed in it deeply. And I had poured my energy, my time, my creativity into it. Late nights, early mornings, sacrifices I didn't talk about to anyone. And this project wasn't just another job. It felt personal, like a marker in my career, a way to prove myself that I was ready for more. But despite my best efforts, it didn't work out. I failed. And not in some small, quiet way either. I crashed, and I crashed hard. And the production schedule, it just unraveled. Key collaborators dropped out halfway through. Budget complications hit like dominoes, and one after another. And even though I tried to hold it together, it slipped through my fingers. And I remember the night we pulled the plug. It was sitting alone in my living room, just staring at a wall. It wasn't loud. It wasn't dramatic. It was just still. And that stillness, the weight of disappointment settling over me like wet cement, I started replaying every choice I'd made, every conversation, every moment I thought I could have done something differently. And slowly, my mind started turning a failed project into a personal failure. I wasn't good enough. I should have seen it coming. I should have been better. But here's the truth. I had done everything I could with what I had at the time. And failure didn't mean that I wasn't capable. It just meant that the outcome wasn't what I expected. And slowly, over time, that realization became a turning point. So let's reflect together for a minute. Right now, I want you to take a break and breathe and bring to mind a moment in your life where something that didn't go just the way you'd hoped. Maybe it was something big, a relationship, a job, or maybe even a dream. Maybe it was something small, but still stings. Now name it, quietly, privately, just for you. And this isn't about shame or blame. It's about pulling the story into the light, because as long as failure lives in the dark corners of your mind, it has power over you. When you name it, that's when you can work with it. So let's take a slow breath in. Hold. Exhale. And tell yourself you are not that failure. You experienced it, but it does not define you. So a friend of mine once opened a small business, and she poured everything into it. And within 2 years, despite all of her hard work, she had to close it down. And for a long time, she couldn't talk about it, just without feeling shame. And she avoided questions. She minimized what happened, but slowly, she started to reframe the story. And instead of seeing it as proof that she wasn't cut out for it, she began to see it as proof that she was brave enough to try. She learned more about herself in those 2 years than she had in 10 years before. And eventually, that so-called failure became the foundation for a new business, one that succeeded not because she avoided mistakes, but because she learned from them. You see, failure isn't an ending, it's a data point. It's a lesson wrapped in disappointment. So here's a simple, practical way that we can reframe failure. 1, separate the event from your identity. Something failed. Great. That doesn't mean that you're a failure. Those are 2 totally different things. Step 2, find the data in the disappointment. Every failure carries a lesson, even if it's buried deep. Ask, what is this trying to show me about how I operate, what I need, or what I value? And step 3, own what's yours and release what isn't. The only thing in this world that you can truly control is the way that you respond to things. And there's a difference between taking responsibility and taking all the blame. Own your part, but release the rest. Step 4, let it be a part of your story, not the whole story, but a chapter, not the book. It's just a stumble that doesn't erase the journey. And then take 1 step forward, even a small one. Failure has a way of freezing us. Movement breaks that spell. The power isn't in erasing the past, it's in rewriting how it lives in your present. But you take a moment and ask yourself a few real questions. What failure have I let define too much of my story? What would happen if I stopped calling it a failure and started calling it feedback? And what might that moment be trying to teach me? Now, there's no quick fixes, no forced positivity, just honest reflection. Because when you stop running from failure and start listening to it, it stops being a wound and it becomes wisdom. So here's your shift for the week. Choose 1 past failure that you've been carrying. Write down 1 lesson it taught you, just 1, and then remind yourself, this is not who I am. It's something I experienced. That small reframe, it creates space to breathe again. It turns your weight into a stepping stone. So thank you for spending this time with me. Failure doesn't make you weak, it makes you human. How you respond to it, well, that's where strength is revealed. And if this episode resonated with you, I would love for you to follow the show, share it with a friend, or leave a kind review. It helps more people find these conversations. And if you're ready to go deeper, you can check out my books or learn more about coaching with me at guidedpathcoaching.crd.co. Failure is part of the story, but it is never the final chapter. Remember, you're doing better than you think.